I think what's interesting is with the shifts in monetization, the industry had so long been focused on one or two main revenue streams. I'll say three actually, but as it relates to the work that we did at CD Baby at the time, it was really one is that CD sales. There was a dominant format that sold, vinyl and tapes, or then it was CDs. The other thing being radio airplay, performance royalties from radio airplay for songwriters, and then live performance. But as far as our work was concerned, the industry was really struggling with the idea of feeling like losing control, these new formats emerging that we don't have our control over yet, and its new rights are implicated. And so it really went from feeling like, oh, I can control how music is exploited to now it's about monetizing and that one revenue stream on CD sales being the main for recorded product. That's your mainstream. To now it being important to capture so many different revenue streams because they're all needed and you can't just focus on one. But for a long time, the tension in the industry was they didn't want to allow these other forms of monetization because they were messy. They didn't work as easy as what they had, been used to with selling CDs and other physical goods. And so, yeah, that change has been interesting. There's still tons of work to do there. It's amazing to me how certain platforms like YouTube sort of set the precedent for how monetization worked on social platforms, but it's still sort of whack-a-mole getting some of these platforms to compensate for the usage of music. It's getting better, but still a ton of work to do. But collecting all these revenue streams became incredibly important, as opposed to what a lot of people initially did is like try to stifle those and run away from them or get their music pulled or not allow for it. And so that has
Yeah.
been a huge shift.
Well, three things to add to this. One, you use the word usage, and I think that is one of the most useful ways of understanding the shifts over the last 20 years is we moved from an ownership music economy to a usage-based economy. You used to have to buy a thing, whether it was a CD or vinyl. Then you even had this weird transitional skeuomorphic phase of buying a download that you still kind of own because it lived on your computer or your hard drive or whatever. And now it's all just about access. You pay for access, or maybe you don't even pay for access. Maybe an advertiser is paying on your behalf to have access to something that you use. But even thinking back, it seems so radical. Maybe we take it all for granted now, but major shift. Another thing is sync licensing was really not a thing for independent artists 20 years ago. Or when we were starting the podcast, I think it was at the beginning of being a thing where an independent
Yes.
artist could get a sync placement in a TV show or something. But that's another thing that's radically changed. And the last one is publishing royalties. If you were an independent artist up until at least fairly a decade into the 21st century, you weren't going to get publishing royalties most likely because A, you weren't getting radio play and you weren't moving enough units of a physical CD to get significant mechanical royalties. That changed as things became more usage based, and CD Baby Pro Publishing did quite a bit to get musicians access to be able to collect their publishing royalties. But also, we did a huge amount of education about what publishing even is and sort of saying, like, hey, songwriters, you're owed this money. Let's help you get it.
Well, and to one of your points, I think one of the biggest shifts in monetization that artists have struggled is what you said that it went from a buying economy where you were trying to get your fans to buy something to an economy based on them actually listening to your music. You can get people coming to a show or seeing you on the street busking and have CDs. Ah, they'll buy a CD, support that artist, but they might never listen to it. My parents have an enormous amount of CDs still in wrappers at their house when they've gone to a concert or something and saw an artist and they were on a cruise and it's the artist that sits in the corner plays. They bought a CD. They never listened to it. That artist made $10 or $15, but they didn't get a fan. They didn't get a listener. They got $15. Artists enjoyed that paradigm, but that still didn't mean that people were listening to your music. Now, the way you monetize, it requires people to listen to your music. So, doing fancy things to just get them to buy a CD while you may make money didn't necessarily build listeners, but now you have to build people that like your music. The music has to be the sales piece to keep people coming back. Because if it's not, bringing them back, you're not going to make money. And that's something I know that artists still trying to make sense with streaming and all the new monetization options under that old lens, and it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.